It's been just over 1 year since I purchased my first SILENTAIRE compressor. I said that I was going to make an updated video 1 year later, so here it is. How do I feel about this model after 1 full year of use? I'd have to say that it's been great. I've been very happy with it. Not once did I encounter a single problem or issue while painting with it, and I paint with this nearly every day. For those of you that are unfamiliar with this brand, these compressors are marketed as virtually noiseless. And for daily use, I've been so impressed. When I'm painting, I usually have something playing on my laptop sitting next to me, like a lecture, an interview, or a podcast. And even though my SILENTAIRE DR150 is only sitting a few feet from me, most of the time I can't even hear it turn on. Here's a quick audio demo recorded with my RE20 dynamic microphone going into a Focusrite Scarlett 4th Gen. I'll be comparing its noise level against 3 other compressors popular in airbrushing, so I'll go quiet here. And so the noise level on this thing is just incredible. Most of the time, I don't even realize that it's on. So that leads me to the first thing that I learned about this compressor over the last year. Make sure that you remember to turn it off at the end of the day. It's so quiet that you could barely hear it across the room, and you're definitely not going to be able to hear it in another room. And so if you have a leak in your line somewhere, something simple, maybe like on a quick disconnect, and that compressor is left on, it's going to continually cycle, refilling the tank, and it's just so quiet you're never going to hear it. And if the leak is large enough and it just keeps cycling, you could easily burn it out. So learn to make a habit of turning the compressor off at the end of a session, and especially at the end of the day. You can even leave a small post-it note or a sticky note, something just to remind you at the end of the session, because it's very easy to forget and you don't want to ruin a very expensive compressor. Within the directions that came along with this compressor, it recommends changing the oil once a year. So that's what I'm going to do here. This is in no way a tutorial on how to change the oil because honestly, I found the instructions to be pretty vague. And that's going to be my one complaint about this compressor. It has nothing to do with the compressor itself. The thing works amazing. It's just the instructions that come along with it. So I do really hope that these are updated in the future to be a bit more specific and lucid and relate only to the compressor purchased. And so for this model, in order for me to change that oil, I had to remove the top covering, just 4 bolts along the inside. They're 8mm bolts. This is what the oil level looks like after 1 year of extended heavy use. According to the instructions, that oil level should be at the halfway point, like what you're seeing here, and the compressor needs to be sitting on a flat surface. After all that time, the oil level didn't drop at all, maybe the smallest amount in 1 year, so it's a really good sign. I didn't have to top this off once during that year of use. I removed the air filter from the back and the plug from the front of the compressor, and then according to the directions, it said to tilt it backwards toward the outlet to drain all of the oil. It took only a few minutes to fully drain this oil, but the compressor is so heavy that if you're doing this yourself, it's probably best to ask someone to help you. The last thing you want to do is drop this compressor or accidentally flip it over, so I'd recommend getting a person to help you with this. And so after all of that oil is drained from the compressor, this is what it looks like. You can see that it remains pretty clear and clean. The only difference is the color. It's just a bit darker than a brand new bottle of oil. And speaking of oil, I purchased a brand new bottle of SILENTAIRE's specific synthetic oil for this change. And unfortunately, this stuff is expensive. I paid like $40 for this 24-ounce bottle, but the compressor itself is also very expensive, and I've wanted one of these for about 20 years now, so there's no way I'm going to ruin it by trying to save a few bucks on a different oil. Within SILENTAIRE's manual, they make a pretty convincing point to only use their specific oil that they've heavily researched and extensively tested. So that's exactly what I purchased, and for my next oil change, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Facing toward the front of the compressor is another inlet. This has a small rubber plug on it that I removed. And so I just added this oil in very slowly, pausing every now and then to take a look at that gauge. It only took me a few minutes to fill up to the halfway point on the gauge, which is where it's supposed to be. And for this compressor, the DR150, it took just a little over 3/4 of the bottle. I made sure that the compressor was sitting on a flat level surface while reading this gauge. And I thought at this point the oil was probably good enough, but just seemed a bit low, so I added a smaller amount just to keep it right at that halfway point. I do dust off the compressor once a month, but since the cover was off, I figured this was a good time just to wipe everything clean. And then I reinserted the air filter and the rubber plug on the other side of the compressor. I will actually be replacing this air filter with a brand new one within the next few weeks. I did fully inspect it. It looked shockingly clean, no sort of dust or particles in there, but just for maintenance, I am going to swap this out. And then I placed the cover back on and reinserted the 4 bolts. Again, these bolts are 8mm. I just tightened them fully down by hand and then just a half turn past hand tight with a ratchet. So that's going to be my 1-year maintenance and oil change. I will definitely keep an eye on this oil level over the next few weeks just to make sure that it's at the correct point. And besides that, I make sure to drain the tank once or twice a week, and of course to periodically empty out and clean the moisture trap. And so yeah, I just love this compressor. 0 issues, 0 air leaks. It just worked perfectly every single day. Now again, it's only been 1 year, but I don't plan on replacing this compressor with any other one, so I hope to see it working well for at least another 20 more. It's a big investment, trust me, I know. That's why it took me so long to finally buy one. But if you're interested in one of these SILENTAIRE compressors, I cannot recommend it enough. It's honestly one of my favorite purchased items within my studio. So thank you all so much for watching. If you ever want any updates on this compressor, how it's working 4 or 5 years down the road, just send me a message in this video or my latest published video. I usually see those a lot easier, and I'll make sure to get back to you. So thank you again. I hope all of you are having a great day and getting some time to spend painting. I will see you back here on this channel next Friday.